Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you as usual to break down all the action in the British Basketball League this week, mainly cup action to come. But before we get into that, Dave, I know you wanted to talk about GB's women's team. I was working Thursday night doing EuroLeague, so I didn't see the game against Greece, but they lost 66-73. And I watched most of today's game in Estonia, and they lost 72-69. Obviously, no Temi Pagbenli for both of those games, which is a huge blow. And Samuelson got injured in today's game. But two really disappointing losses, and the qualification a real struggle from here.
Yeah, well, firstly, Temi is a loss. I mean, I don't know at what point she scratched from the game. I don't know if she'd been practicing or if it was a late injury or whatever. I don't know if it meant that they had to kind of rethink their plans or whatever. But not having her, particularly against the Greek team, and you might not have seen the Greek game, but the Greek team had two very, very talented inside players. One called Spanos and Fasula. I think Fasula may be the daughter of a guy I watched 30 years ago. A Pauk called Fasulis. It was 7'1" with a perm which made him 7'4" playing at Crowtree Leisure Centre in Sunderland. They kind of ate us up on the inside, and basically Azania Stewart battled really well. But there was very little else. But what concerned me, I didn't know what our strategy was. In two games, I haven't figured out what the plan was yet. I was hoping I would have figured it out after the first game, or at least today. It started with Chantal Handy playing the 4, Carly Samuelson the 3, Rachel van der Waal the point guard. Obviously, Rachel's not been played that many games since she got back off quite a serious injury. I think Holly Winterburn started at the 2. And the reality of it was that we were playing point guard by committee for 2 games. I don't know who I still don't know who the chosen point guard in that team is, because Rachel didn't play many minutes. Georgia Gale actually finished the game playing the point. If you watch the first quarter in about 6 minutes, you'll see 4 different girls handling the ball at the court. Chantal Handy was having to guard one of the big girls inside, and she got 2 fouls early at the 8-minute mark in the first quarter, and then she was sat down for the whole first half, which killed her, because when she came out in the third quarter, she had no rhythm. And that basically lost her all the way until halfway through the fourth quarter, when she came in, she made a couple of threes and nearly got us back into the game. I've never liked the strategy of sitting someone down for a whole half, because I think you lose them in the third quarter as well. And then we went with 2 bigs, but not a lot. Shaquila Joseph played a bit. Chantal Charles played a tiny bit. Azania played probably the most of everybody. And the Greeks just ran their stuff, and they weren't great. And we challenged and we hustled and we hurried and we did everything we could do to kind of grab a toehold in the game. But there was never, what I could see, a plan as to who we were trying to stop, because we doubled down on the big. We threw so many different coverages at the big girls. They were just going down inside, and we threw occasional doubles, and we doubled off the shooters, and they made catch and shoot threes. We had different personnel on, as I say, all the time, and we had no consistency of offense with our point guard play. And
of course, the best, arguably the best point guard we have, we can't/don't select in Kennedy Leonard, and this is this is a controversial one, because obviously she's deemed by FIBA to be a naturalized player because she didn't get a passport until after she was 16.
But she was entitled to one before that.
But she's always been entitled to, and she said she was British at birth.
And that should be the argument, of course. But that's a separate argument for FIBA. The argument should be if you're entitled to get a passport, not when you get a passport. But then FIBA don't want to get themselves into the Byzantine ways of countries' own laws in relation to when you get a passport. So I understand that both ways. The difficulty with not having Kennedy Leonard or having a kind of that wasn't just that. It was that it meant that everybody else was off kilter. So Holly Winterburn is handling the basketball. Shanice Beckford-Norton is handling the basketball. Neither of them have done that for London all season. Basically, Kennedy Leonard's playing 36 minutes a game.
Yeah.
And so they are then out of what they do. Shanice Beckford-Norton came in and was an absolute bundle of energy and kind of dragged us back, but she was also a little bit out of control at times. And part of the problem for her was that she was getting the ball in areas that she wasn't used to be going. If she's the point guard, she can't play the same way that she does when she's a wrecking ball for London, getting to the rim. And she didn't play the fourth quarter. She got sat down because she made a couple of out of control plays at the end of the third quarter. But we kind of needed her, but we needed her doing what she does, not what she was being asked to do. And even then, as I say, we kind of got back into the game. And the girls, I can't argue with their intensity or their energy or their attempt to do it, but they were just never in it. And as I say, we ended up with Georgia Gale playing the point guard, who played in the point spot last 5 minutes, who basically hadn't played for much of the game. And she was the option that we were using at the end. So it was all Holly Winterburn got unsportsmanlike out.
Yeah,
she got 2 unsportsmanlikes, and I have to say that the standard of the refereeing in the 2 games I watched was pretty average.
Well, I only saw today's game and the play just before halftime.
Yeah, well, the judo throw. Yeah,
that was. I mean, when I saw the replay from the baseline, I was like, "That's a DQ." Yeah. At first, I thought it was a foul, and then I thought maybe it's an unsportsmanlike foul. But she grabbed her and threw her over the.
They didn't even go and look at it. But anyway,
they didn't even. Yeah.
I mean, the same on Friday night in the first game. I thought the referee was really, really poor. But there you go. We didn't maximize our chances of winning that game, and it was almost like we went to a zone late in the fourth quarter, and they made a couple of threes. It was almost like it was like plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. And players were getting moved around. So Handy might have been playing the 3, Samuelson might have been playing the 4. Or they might be playing with 2 bigs, and it just wasn't right. There was no consistency in what they were doing in international basketball. The level is so high or so controlled that you have to have consistency in relation to what you expect of your players. And if different girl's bringing the basketball to the court and initiating the offense, that means somebody else is running off a screen on the baseline. That means somebody else is having to set a flare screen, and they're all kind of bouncing around. So it was a disappointing loss, albeit, to be honest, one which you can't say was a horrible loss without Temi. It was Greece, they're a decent team, and you kept it to 7, so you can still go there and beat them. We've got with that, and obviously we didn't have Georgia Jones either, who I assume is injured. I think is injured, to kind of play some backup point guard minutes. But that was So it kind of put the Kennedy Leonard thing really into focus for me, because we have more. Carly Samuelson's very, very good, but we have more Carly Samuelsons than we have Kennedy Leonards. That's the reality. True. Yeah. And I'm talking about Holly Winterburn, Chantal Handy, Shanice Beckford-Norton, who are they're not the same, but they are of similar ilk. Today's game got kind of befuddled me even more. We started off with Hannah Robb starting. Hannah Robb didn't get off the bench on Wednesday. She didn't play a minute, and she's thrust into the starting lineup. She played 5 minutes, dropped the ball a couple of times, looked in no rhythm at all, and she never saw the court again till the last 13 seconds. Yeah. And I'm like, that can't be anything other than a hunch. My coach, just like, what, really? You're going to drop this girl into that of having not played the whole of the last game? And just what are you expecting of her? And your hunches don't win games. Now you have to plans win games. Hunches, okay, you might get lucky once or twice, but the higher the level of basketball, you don't win with hunches. So she started. Chantel Handy came off the bench, having started the last game. Van der Waal and I think they started the 2 bigs today. I can't even remember if Holly started, to be honest, because Carly Samuelson started as well. And from that moment on, again, I thought it was discombobulated. They got decent play out of certain players. Xenia Stewart was awesome. Absolutely awesome, and as I say, the referees were awful, and they're allowing the physicality of the game to get ridiculous. The only time we looked at the monitor for unsportsmanlike foul was when Shanice Beckford-Norton was being grabbed and trying to push a girl. The rest of the time, people are getting hit in the face and everything, and they're not bothered. Even to the point whereby they blew a very dodgy standing on the sideline in the last second.
Yeah.
It looked like a 3-shot foul to me. It looked like
It did look like a foul to me, but
it looked like a 3-shot foul to the whole of the Estonian bench, which was holding its head in disbelief. But yeah, so Hannah Robb is starting, then she doesn't get, then she plays 5 minutes and she doesn't come on again. We kind of played one big most of the time. Sheridan Green played well when we got the ball, when we threw the ball into her. And again, no idea how to use Shanice Beckford-Norton, I'm afraid. None. I just didn't see any consistency from her. She was playing over-aggressive again, trying to assert herself. And if you can use that over-aggressiveness, if you use it in the right way, but it wasn't, it's a quick pull, a quick hook, off you come, and then, do something different. I don't know. I don't know how they lost that game. We gave up a ton of threes in the fourth quarter, to shooters who were with their feet set. Even then, Holly Winterburn made a couple of shots.
Unbelievable three at the end of the shot clock.
That's right. Just a baller's shot, And then Chantal,
and they went and checked that as well. It was like that one. I know it was the end of the shot clock, but it was obviously out of our hands, and they still went and checked it. Yeah.
And I just didn't. And so we ended up with Georgia Gale, Holly Winterburn, Chantal Handy, and another of the guards on the court. Then even at the end, we're down 3, and we call a timeout with 7 seconds left, and we put 5 on the court, and then run and draw up a play, and then suddenly make a sub. Haven't spent a minute in a timeout drawing up a play. Suddenly Hannah Robb comes out, and Azania Stewart goes in. And obviously the idea was to throw it into Azania Stewart and move off her, and she'll throw it out to somebody for a 3. But that wasn't what they'd drawn up in the huddle. So it just seemed to be absolute hunches. There's no system that I could say. There was no responsibility for individual players. I couldn't. If you go and ask half those players what their job was in each of those games, I'm not sure that they would know. And that may be entirely unfair, of course, because I'm not there. But I didn't discern any. I didn't discern. I was looking for some idea as to, this is the way that we're going to try and to beat this team. This is what we're going to try and do. We should have beaten Estonia by 10 points. They were there to be taken in that basketball game. And they got momentum, they got rhythm, they made all those set shot threes. And even though they tried to lose the game at the end, they still beat us.
Yeah. So direct qualification is now unlikely in terms of the first place. There are some second place positions that they could get. GB will have to win all their games, and they will have to, I think, hope that Estonia lose all their games so that this game isn't counted in terms of the
That's the second place thing.
Yeah, the second place thing, because it drops off the last.
Who's the fourth team in the group? I'm struggling.
It's gone off the top of my head now. I was looking at it about 20 minutes ago and I've totally forgotten.
But it's disappointing because there is talent there. There's a lot of talent there, and they are inexperienced, to be fair. So Holly Winterburn's playing her first game. Shanice Beckford-Norton's hardly played, and they're suddenly 2 important pieces that vaulted there by the way of the London's European campaign. And Richard van der Velde's just coming back. But it's still, these are proper players, and they have to be used in the proper way. And we have to have some form of, we lost a bad game, if you remember, against South Korea. We should have been in the Olympics against a team that we were considerably better than in South Korea in that game. And in the qualification round for the Olympics, we had a great chance to qualify for the Olympics. We lost 2 bad games, 2 bad losses. Not that they were bad because we played badly or because we lost by a lot, but because in the small margins of international basketball games, they were games that we could have won, and we left some points out there. That makes some bad losses. Their worst losses in losing games by 20 or 30.
Yeah,
lose those games by 5 or 6 and 3 in Estonia, and they have to look at their plan. Their plan clearly isn't right, and it's I don't know any of the coaches, and they've probably got plans and things probably haven't gone the way they wanted to, and there's probably 100 things I don't know about it. but we have to start holding everybody in this sport, to account in relation to results, particularly on the national stage.
Well, obviously very disappointing. They don't play again now until next year, so we'll maybe come back to that at some point. Let's move on to our usual weekly roundup. We'll start on
the usual rant instead of
the
a different
usual.
rant.
Yeah. We'll start on Wednesday night, where the Lions were in European action in Kapfenberg, and they beat the Bulls 100-81. Now I was doing Euro Cup on Wednesday night, so I watched this one back on Saturday morning. First of all, I just want to shout out to Pat Holgate and his family, because I was watching it on Synergy, and I don't know if there was any commentary on the YouTube in real time, but there was no commentary on the Synergy thing, and you could hear Pat and his very distinctive Lions chants throughout the game. So there's a guy who's been through a lot of thin, and it's nice to see him and his family enjoying a bit of the thick.
And I actually quite like him. I don't want to tell him that back. because he went through a lot of things when we used to beat them all the time. He always had a smile. And he went to, I think I'm probably corrected if I'm wrong, but I think we went to EuroBasket 2009 in Poland. I think he was there.
Yeah.
Had some time spent there. Great lad and a bloke now, and nice family, and to go to Austria. It's awesome. It's awesome. We take stuff for granted. And I hope London don't take him for granted, because there's times that some of their social media towards
indeed,
perfectly regular, perfectly reasonable and responsible criticism by a team from a fan has been kind of OTT. What I'll say is that I have to say, Pat, I'm sorry, I thought the game was a non-event.
Well, I must confess, I was watching the game, and I don't know if this was skewed by knowing what the final score was, because it's Saturday morning and I'm watching the game. But even though the game was close, Lions looked so comfortable, and it looked like the run was inevitable. It was going to come at some
jeopardy
point
on the game at all. I thought we only really saw the first half live, because the second half the internet went, and it got one of those blotchy kind of
that will explain, because on Synergy the first half was in normal camera coverage, and then at halftime it was key motion style. I don't know if it's key motion. Other robot cameras exist, but and it was Kapfenberg A versus Kapfenberg B on their little
so we only saw the first half. In the first half, to be honest, I wasn't really that bothered about watching the second half much. The first half, London were just playing with Kapfenberg. They gave him, the defense was just there. Kapfenberg knocked down some shots. Kapfenberg's defense was utterly disinterested from what I could see. The Reece could get to the rim whenever they wanted. Dirk could get what he wanted. Reece could get what he wanted. Jordan Williams is just balling, and it was as a routine a victory. From what I saw, from what I predicted, as you could ever imagine in Europe. And it's nice, we've just looked, it's nice to see that people are being shown that, that Europe isn't just this gargantuan, fantastic.
With 18,000 seater arenas.
18,000 seats, everybody, they're playing in Bletchley Leisure Centre. Estonia.
Well, that's probably a bit harsh on Bletchley, is it?
It might be, yeah. Estonia today. Okay, that's probably a step up on Northgate though.
Lighting's better.
Lighting's better than Northgate. Estonia today was just, his lines all over.
I can't believe they're allowed to do that in international basketball.
That's the problem. You see, we hold ourselves to all these FIBA standards. You just don't bother. There's lines all over the court. There's like 6 rows of bleachers, and that's about it. That's like an NBL one, Jim. Here, and we're constantly belittling our own product. And we're actually now seeing out there that actually, there's nothing there which is.
We should still aspire to get to the Alexander Nikolic Hall where Red Star were playing on Thursday, where I was doing the commentary for that.
You should aspire, but I would suggest not in my lifetime. My grandkids, but never mind.
So the one run that mattered in this game came in the third quarter. It was a 15-2 run. Lions were then 62-77 ahead, and that was that. So let's look at the group. Beirut beat Dona 84-61. So with one round of games to go, Lions are 5-0. Beirut are 4-1. The other two are out. Lions will top the group if they lose by 10 or get a better result. than that.
Mm.
So I had a look at the other groups to see what they might be facing going forward. So if they top the group, they would play H1, first place in Group H, which is Legia Warsaw. C2, which is probably Parma Parry match, and don't get confused by that. That is not Italy. That is deepest, darkest Russia.
Russia,
yeah, it's in Perm, so it's that's a long old way away. There is a chance. There is a chance Den Bosch could come second in that group, but there's a lot of points need to be made up in the last game. And then then it would be the second team from Group E, which is either Mornar Bar from Montenegro or Leiden from Holland. Yeah, and I think Mornar have the better basket difference. So I think if they win, they're through. I think that's the one.
So Montenegro, Poland, and Russia.
Probably yes.
I might want to lose by 11.
Well, then so you haven't heard what's coming if they finish second yet. So if they finish second in the group, they play the second in Group G, which is a super tight group at the moment. Anybody can finish anywhere. At the minute, Barken, who Leicester played a few years ago, are in second, and my guess would be they'll probably finish in second place, but so much can happen in that group. They would play the first team in Group D, which looks like it will probably be Avtodor Saratov. Again, deepest, darkest Russia, probably not quite as far as Perm is, but still a long way to go. Or it could be Reggio Emilia. Northern Italy is a slightly better flight, but a good team nonetheless. And then they play the team in Group E, who top Group E, which did make me smile, because it's Bahçeşehir College of Turkey, which, if it sounds familiar, you might remember is owned by the same team who owned the Plymouth Raiders until last summer.
Short period of time.
So it'd be interesting to see if that was the case, if anybody from Plymouth came up just to boo them or something like that.
Yeah, or maybe ask for 850 grand back. No comment. Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to be, it will be fun because they're in the Western Europe group at the moment. So they've got the German team, the Dutch team, and the
Austrian team.
And to be honest, I have a fair idea of the standards and the relevant kind of competencies of those leagues. Now we do as well. And I have from the recruitment, because that's generally where you want to recruit from. You want to recruit from somewhere a little bit closer because of the familiarities for the players, and also because you just have a slightly better idea as to what's going on than you do in, as you put it, deepest, darkest Russia. But now, when you get out of the Western Europe division and you get into a secondary division, and suddenly you're going to places like Turkey and Russia, where the money is significant, how they compare to that will be the next really interesting thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, we're using them here as kind of guinea pigs, kind of put ourselves on the parallel. But hey, if you're gonna go the hamster on the wheel, you're gonna get judged for how fast you run,
Yeah. So that, I mean, it'll all be sorted out by the time we next talk. But that both of those groups will have their challenges. And the interesting thing about the second round is there are like gaps between the games in a way that there haven't been in the first round. So it's like two games in December, 2 games in January, and 2 games in February. So a bit more like they do in football, where they play a couple of weeks and then have a couple of weeks off, sort of thing.
That'll be interesting because they're still on to win everything, London. That's that's what they're on for.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I don't know. I know that the first 2 games are, I think it's the 8th and the 15th. It's those 2 Wednesdays, if I've got the date slightly wrong.
Sorry, go on, yeah.
But presumably that's roughly where the cup semi-final legs would be. It's where they usually are, isn't it? And obviously, if you've got to fly to Perm on a Wednesday and then come back to Morningside Arena on a Friday. That's going to be,
And
I mean, just getting back by Friday would be a challenge, wouldn't it?
And Kapfenberg on a Sunday, yeah, make things interesting. Yeah, I got the. I'm not impressed, by the way. I'm going to throw this in there now before we get to the next game. You conducted the draw on Facebook impeccably. However, the said structure of the draw does not.
Yeah.
I'm afraid the firstly the trophy draw is by design unbalanced.
Yeah.
Because of the 6 teams in one pot and 10 in the other, and the 6 teams are all BBL teams.
Yeah.
And the only way and it's a bracket, so you're drawing it all the way through. So what you need to be doing on that one next time is that the first game and the last game needs to be drawn out of the 10 pot, as opposed to the 2 last games being drawn out of the 10 pot.
Yeah. That would.
Yeah. So you balance the top half and the bottom half, because the numbers. I did some numbers, but I would. The numbers on this show would plummet very, very quickly if I started talking about them. But I did some numbers, and there's a real prospect of an unbalanced draw in relation to the way it's set up. So that's the first thing. And secondly, the cup thing. It's crackers that we're going to have 2 southern teams playing 2 northern teams. We'll get to that. Now I know you can't necessarily control that in relation to but in relation to who was going to win the quarterfinals. But when 2 northern teams and 2 southern teams win the quarterfinals, to have them playing each other again, it's just nuts. And
the only way around that is to actually predetermine so one would play. You assume that the top 2 go through, and one would play 2 and one would play 2, rather.
Or you wait until the teams are qualified, and if there's 3 teams from one group and 1 team from the other, well, it is what it is. But if there's 4 teams from the one group, it is what it is. But if there's 2 and 2, you put them in separate pots. If there's 3v1, there's nothing to do about it, because 2 of them are going to play each other, so there's no point. But so doing the draw before the quarterfinals have been played, I don't get it. I mean, both teams, you don't need to. Both teams are getting a home game. Plus you could split it out for another week.
I slightly smile because my availability next week was not great. So
right, so it's a Routledge problem. Okay, I get you. So I think BBL, they can do a little bit better than that. And the schedule, the BBL, the scheduling this year is another thing which we'll come on to in a minute.
The trophy, the bracket thing, as you say, I'd be super happy if I was Glasgow or Cheshire.
It's just the numbers. You're guaranteed 4 BBL teams playing four home games in the top bracket. Half the bracket, and therefore, by definition, you're not going to. There's every prospect that you're going to have at least 2 BBL teams, 2 out of in the top half. That'd be 6 v4. And that doesn't make much sense to me. But anyway,
and Surrey, I think, are in the top half as well, aren't they? Surrey play Cheshire.
Surrey, Cheshire, Plymouth, and Glasgow, I think. So it's 4 teams in there, but it's 6 and 4. And actually, when you do the stats, you do the combinations. I went back to my A-level maths. That's the way it's most likely to turn out. With the numbers that you've got, the way you do it, and I'm not. There's a way of solving that. But I'll send an empty email to be ignored by Andy.
Right, let's get on to the BBL action. We've probably done half an hour and we haven't done a BBL game yet. Friday night's Sky game, Manchester Giants 109, Cheshire Phoenix 81. Dixon was back for Cheshire, and the one thing sat courtside in this game was the pace was unbelievable. They were just up and down. Now Manchester missed some early shots. There were turnovers. It was a tight game, but you felt like Manchester were in a better position, despite the fact that there was nothing between the 2 teams at that stage.
But they got more players, and they got a better rhythm, and they got a better rotation as to who's playing when. Cheshire got an unbalanced roster in relation to having basically 4 bigs that they're having to try and find a way in. They're getting very little at the moment. They were in this game, and from up until Saturday, very little from McSwiggan and Mockford, and athletically really struggling, and also spirit-wise struggling. And Manchester have this kind of ability to put their foot on the gas because they have scorers. Everyone is a scorer. Everyone come off the bench is a scorer, and more importantly, they score in transition. And BBL, you know, I know we made a living off it for years and years and years. You know, if you can score in transition effectively off your defense, then you can put, you know, because teams can tend to kind of, you know, fold faster than an origami convention. You know, they just they can fold very quickly. 4 or 5 trips down, people chuck up bad shots. If you can score off the other end or you get a turnover, you can mentally destroy a team in like 5 minutes, and that's what happened in that game.
Yeah. Well, the first 5 minutes of the second quarter, there was a ton of turnovers by Cheshire, and actually we should credit Armstrong because he made 7 steals, so it wasn't just Cheshire turning the ball over.
Yeah, it was kind of a little bit.
But there was some of that. There was one where it went cross court straight to Ben, and there was I think it was the next play they threw it into the backcourt, so the heads were spinning at that point. Giants had a 21-2 run in 5 minutes, and were 19 up, and to be honest with you, that was almost the ball game. Yeah,
that was the game. That was the game. You know, giving Manchester 20. I don't think anybody's going to be giving Manchester 20 points this season and coming out winning, because Manchester is a flow team. When they're in that flow, and because Lloyd has so many combinations, they're not going to tire. So it's not going to be a tiring thing. It's going to be a situation where he can put whichever guys he needs back on the court when he needs them. The Armstrong Rocker 4 thing was interesting because obviously it's big guard v little guard.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about there's a big split in the league this year between big guards and little guards, and you know, Armstrong, I think he's had a couple of quiet games since he kind of came on the scene early, but he's putting he is putting his stamp on that team. I still think he's a little bit inconsistent, and he will be because he's a rookie. But he's quick. He has quick hands, and he appears to be connected at all times to the game. You know, so to have 10 steals in any basketball game is, you know, it means that you must be doing a number of things right. Even if they throw you the ball 3 times, you're still there, and it's not really a great endorsement of Cheshire's guard play.
No.
Cheshire were Robbie Graham, gave Robbie Graham a shot.
Yeah, indeed. He played really, really well. He wasn't affected by the scoreboard. He didn't go who was in front of him. He just played. I know what it's like with you guys, because when you see someone who really is not on the scout report, who doesn't really play much, you see him come on, he's on the telly game. It's like Graham. When he makes his first shot, you know, kind of Rowe gives him kind of a patronizing slap on the back. Yeah. But then actually you see him, and then we're all waiting to see, and then suddenly he steals a ball, or he gets his hand in, or he gets an offensive rebound, he knocks down a foul shot, and suddenly it's like, oh, actually this kid's playing. You know, he's not just quote box playing, he is playing, and he's actually showing them something. And credit to Cheshire for throwing him out there, and credit to him for playing fearlessly when he was out there. Yeah,
it's not easy, and it was nice. So yeah, I'll give him a shout. But really, the rest of them, I'm afraid, Dickerson hardly played in the game as well. Play him up, which is very, very weird. I'm not sure what's going on, because he can play, but you know, he's still there, but he hasn't played many games, and he's
been ill. He's been ill, which is why he's not played the games. But we'll get on to him in the next game, because I've got a couple of interesting things to ask you about on that one.
Yeah.
So name on right, by the way, 24 of their first 47 points. They were still down 25 points, and it was in the third quarter. But without him, it would have been even more brutal.
I think they need another guard. I really do think. I think that there's too much on Teddy.
Yeah,
too much ball handling on Teddy. They need to find another guard. You know, if you stick Karen Ross next to Teddy in the backcourt, then suddenly you've got a whole different level of team. I'm saying Karen Ross because he played there last year, but you know,
somebody of that.
And they have an American spot, so you know, I think they have to use it. They're staring down the pretty tough start, even in a 8-team playoff, in a 10-team league, it's still tough.
So the Giants top scorer had 14 points out of 109, and I got asked on Twitter, that can't happen very often, and the answer is only once since 2008 is like my date. I can tell you almost anything after 2008.
0.
Yeah, indeed. I hope to get further back at some point, but at the minute that's where I am. And it was Leicester against Leeds, 2018. Pierre Hampton top scored with 14. They scored 103. Leicester 7 in double figures. Manchester. You talked about their ability to score. They can do that. And we saw it again today.
Yeah, they can do that. It also helps them for stats like that when your coach is sharing out minutes because because you've got a ton of players. And you're winning in the fourth. You're winning in the second quarter. To the point where you're going to win the game. So basically, I've been in games like that, and the whole of the second half is working out who don't you want to get injured?
Yeah.
Who needs to be in a rhythm? Who's going to put the lip on if you take them out too early? You know, who are you going to screw up for the next game because they've got another game to play this weekend? And it just becomes it's actually some of the most stressful games I ever had to kind of stand on the line and do.
Yeah.
There are guys who want to play.
You end up sitting next to the stats person.
It's just like you end up not looking at anybody. There's some who want to play, you know, and
there's others
like last year's thinking, you know, my hamstring's a bit tight, you know, and you try, but you don't want them to lose any rhythm that they got for the next game. And it because, you know, it's a foreign thing, but it's really tough when you're not actually coaching to win the game and you're coaching the game that's already won. And particularly as we never really had kind of that many kids on the bench we could just throw in, so you had to manage those guys. And Floyd was a control freak, so I was like, he needs rhythm. He needs rhythm. He needs to come out, you know, that type of thing.
So Armstrong, 13-5, 7 assists, 10 steals. That's the first time somebody's got double figure steals since the Tiber Lions in 2009.
Good start, Claxon.
Yeah, no, in the middle of the game as well.
I know that was impressive. And
I had to wait for Lasker to come back to ask the question as well. Name on right. Yeah, it is. Name on right, 28 points off 9 of 14 shooting. So let's go to Saturday, a couple of cup games. It was all cup games this weekend after that. So down at the Copper Box, London Lions 100, Sheffield Sharks 68. There was no Isaiah Reese for London. Andre Lockhart was in the starting lineup. You obviously prioritized bowling over our audience, Dave, which is a bit
my
shocking.
family life. It was my birthday. They got me presents. I had to, I didn't know it was 5 o'clock tip. I had no, you know, I just absolutely totally lost this game altogether until someone did something about it. And it's like, oh, whatever. Because obviously we'd have gone bored half an hour earlier. And I got this was a scary. I mean, I watched a bit of it, but this was a scary.
Well, the interesting thing is the reason that you became aware of this this game was because Bennett Cook had the first 7 points of the game and Vince called the not locked in timeout 2 minutes in. And I was sat there thinking, ooh, London are vulnerable here. No Reese. They don't look locked in. Sheffield's a good team playing well. 7-0 up, and it's Cook who's got them started, and we know how he can perform when he's feeling confident about himself. And then Sheffield just allowed them right back in. Dirk hit 5 points. Robinson had 3. Kujini was making shots from inside the arc and at the free throw line. Sheffield couldn't buy a shot, basically. 12-0 run, Lions up 9. And then you think, oh, now this is more like it from London.
It's interesting what you say about, you know, Dirk, Rob, Justin.
Yeah.
They're the guys who know what a cup final is.
Yeah.
You know, they're the guys who know what a clean sweep is and what they're looking for. You know, they're the guys who know that 4 bad quarters against Sheffield and your clean sweep's gone. Yeah. Ultimately, it's gone. You know, and that's why it's, you know, very, very difficult to do. You don't take these 4 bad quarters. And I think subsequently you'll see Jordan Williams as well came to that. Too. So, you know, the advantage that they have of that particularly with Justin back of the BBL experience as well. And give credit to Lockhart. You know, he's hardly playing some games. He's playing spot minutes in other games. And he comes in and basically runs the team. And he runs the team so that all his guys get shots. So Kujini's getting shots. Dirk Williams is getting shots to a point whereby it's actually because he's less ball dominant than Reese is. but he's just running the team the way that as a kind of a true point guard you would run a team, a pass first point guard. Those guys get more and more comfortable with them playing, and so you give Andre a lot of credit for that. It's just a scary result for them. My kind of knock. I say a knock. Kind of how would you beat London? You get into Reece, you try and impact him, make him have a 7 for 22 night and see if his head exploded.
Yeah.
You would probably stay at home on Williams and Kajini, taking away any looks at all for them, and you would challenge the rest of them to beat you. You'd probably challenge just Jordan Williams to beat you, to score enough to beat you, and try and take away Kelly and lob in the high post. Lob in the high post screen, sorry. But to do that without Reece, which was kind of number one on my list of how would you try and counteract them, and then to come out and kind of just waltz away with a game against a solid team. Now Sheffield got a so-so effort from Kapfenberg, who I think don't think had a point in the first half, and if he's a big player for them because he's the kind of the extra. I've said that many times before. I'll continue to say it. He wasn't.
You've also got that weird copper box sort of end thing, and they missed a ton of 3-pointers that you would normally expect them.
I mean, to be honest, we won very rarely at the copper box after about 2017, and even when we had good teams, you get off the bus. And Sheffield to London's a trip.
Yeah,
Newcastle London's further, but Sheffield London's a trip. You'd get off the bus, and kind of the sight lines in that gym are tough because of the depth perception at the ends, because of the colours of the seats, because even the seats on the sidelines aren't that close. It's like you're playing in them. It's like a football match where you're playing with an athletics track around you.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's not advertising hoardings there either, separating the touchline up from the that wasn't what we were playing, from the court as well. So you're actually sitting there with almost a foot on the court, like you're in a kind of a school gym. So it's not. I mean, other teams have shot there well. Marcus Evans made 7 for Bristol, so it's not an excuse. But it is. But it is. If you'd asked me the most difficult gym to shoot in, cold in the BBL, I'd say London and Plymouth. If I'm honest, those two are because they're different. Those two are the hardest. So but it doesn't stop London because they're so ready. They're practicing there, and they're used to it, and it's just a scary result. I mean, Kajini is a perfect BBL picker. He's a perfect BBL guy because you've got all this other talent, and you've got this kind of 6'4", not particularly athletic guy, just kind of hung around on the perimeter, and he will kill you, and he's shooting threes, and he's made and that's 3 points is more than 2. So if you fall asleep on him, he's had two or three games already this season where he's upwards of 25 points on 60-70% shooting. And he's the type of guy whereby if he doesn't do that, you don't lose anything. But if he does that, you're blowing teams out.
28 points in 28 minutes in this game.
Yeah,
just 5 of 10 threes.
5 of 10 threes, but every single one looks like it's going in. You put him on one side, you put Dirk on the other side, and you've got Reece throwing lobs to Kelly as well. Wow, I'm not sure. Teams in the BBL generally have access to two specific red buttons, right? There's 2 buttons they can press. The one button is the one which says, "Okay, we're fed up now. We're turning it up." These are the good teams in the BBL. We're turning it up, and we're going to take over. That's one. London have definitely got that. The second button is mark self-destruct, right? And most BBL teams, somewhere along the line over the course of the season, there is a self-destruct button to press. In fact, every BBL coach, I think, will tell you that 80% of their week-to-week basis is preventing their team from getting close enough to be able to reach out and say, "Oh, I wonder what that button is." Because all it takes is one guy, and it doesn't have to be in the game. It can be in practice, or it can be something. It can be going out and maybe having a shandy too many before you get in the car, or just all sorts of things, or something can happen for maybe a player's family at home, or maybe 2 guys going out with the same girl. Who knows? I really honestly don't know. None of those are experience. None of those are personal experiences.
Yeah.
None at all. That's just me trying to think of things. But they're all marked. They all come into the same category, marked self-destruct button. And all you're trying to do is buy yourself 3 weeks, 4 weeks, try and get through the next segment of the season without your team self-destructing. I don't know if London don't look close to it yet.
No, they
Don't
don't.
even look curious about what it might be. Even
Yeah.
if it starts flashing, I don't see anybody kind of going over there and saying, "Oh, like Homer Simpson in section
Yeah.
7." So as long as they avoid the self-destruct button,
Yeah.
wow. I'm glad. Well, we'll get to the next game about Leicester and Cheshire, but at least we're going to see London and Leicester in 2 legs.
Yeah.
And I like that because there's a challenge. There's a challenge attached to that.
Yeah.
Leicester will throw everything they can at them. I'm not sure whether it will be enough, but they will throw everything that they can at them, I think.
I think some of it depends on whether Darren Nelson-Henry is.
Well, obviously, yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. But then again, lots can happen in a month. Lots of people can be injured. Lots can happen anyway.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's nothing really to tell about the second half of this. There's more and more.
Yeah, can't really say anything about Sheffield. I thought they I don't think they were great, but they just got blitzed. They had some shots in the second half, but for what I saw, but I kind of tailed off watching it in the fourth quarter.
They were in danger of their biggest ever loss, Sheffield, which is.
Ooh, must have been us, was it?
It was. They lost by 40 to Newcastle.
Was that Boxing Day or something like that?
I can't remember the date of it. I didn't write it down, but yes, that's the.
No. That would have been the second leg of the playoff semi-final too.
Oh yeah.
Where we beat them by I think a point in the first leg or something like that.
Yeah.
And came up on a Sunday afternoon. A Sunday afternoon game at Sports Central.
Yeah, I remember it.
Mike Cook made a couple of shots early, and then because we had Scott Martin guarding him, and then Charles said, "I'm guarding him." And Charles played 5 minutes of defense. Like I've never seen Charles play 5 minutes of defense before because they were desperate. Our team that year, we'd won all 3, and we were desperate to get to the O2 because the first year at the O2.
Yeah.
So it was a big thing. Yeah. So I think that was that game.
Yeah.
We won by a lot.
You won by 40. It got to 39, 97-58. Nate Montgomery made a couple of late threes to trim the gap. Let's go on to the later game, which you didn't want to miss on your birthday. The Leicester Riders 85, Cheshire Phoenix 84, and I walk in there and I'm talking to Danny Byrne before the game, and he says, "Oh, McSwiggan's out, and Bradley has I think it was a foot problem, and he's not there. They're on a back-to-back. I've just seen them last night, disastrously giving the ball away, and the defense all over the shop as well." There seemed at that point to be only one outcome.
Yeah, but this thing
because I went in thinking, BBL bounce back game that we talk about, but then I see there are 2 guys down playing 24 hours later against a team that doesn't care about your problems. By the way, we're going to just do what we do.
Yeah, but there's also the other BBL phenomenon, which I think is probably more common in our league than in many due to the schedule and the nature, which is addition by subtraction. In games, because of the nature of individuals, because of the nature of players, you got the other 2 guys down, but that means everyone's going to play.
Yeah,
it means there's no excuses for those guys who are playing. I mean, he can't, none of them can turn around and say, well, he pulled me for him, or he only didn't start me, or he didn't do that, or it's not my fault, it's his fault. I'm on the bench, I should be playing. You got 6 players, basically. Robbie Graham played a little bit, but basically 6 players. So those 6 players know that the successor, otherwise the team is on them. And on top of that, they play more minutes together, which means that they get more rhythm together as a group. No, that's not a sustainable. Cheshire won everything with 6 players. Let's remember that Cheshire. Now they have to be good players. It's not sustainable generally over a long season. Probably not now. Probably now more so than 15 or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But there is still an unquantifiable but definite benefit from having a short rotation. There are negatives which go with it, but there are also benefits. And that benefit is that it means everyone knows they're playing. No one's worried about making a mistake, and you just got to get on there and play. And I thought that's what happened with Cheshire, because they were able to play fearlessly. They were able to put whatever issues they've all got going on to one side and just turn out and ball. And it helped that the guys that they had, Michael Cherubia in the middle, Kyle Carey, who, whatever happens, is going to play with energy. Teddy, who's going to be your fulcrum, your point guard. And name on right who's your scorer, they're probably, the guys who've been there longest. And then you add in the kind of heat-seeking missile that is Ben Mockford, and you're just waiting to see whether he's going to fire himself into the crowd, into the opposition, or into his own team's foot, But he's a heat-seeking, he's someone you've got to be aware of. And those five, and then you add in a kind of an American who's clearly talented, who has to play. And suddenly you've got kind of a rotation which says, "Go on, guys, go win the game." So
they only had one turnover in the first quarter, which, when you look at what they did the night before, was a massive improvement. Gino Crandall got 2 early fouls, so he
got a bit antsy. He got a bit antsy. Yeah,
he was on the bench inside 2 minutes. Dickerson came off the bench midway through, and he got instant impact, 7 points in a 12-3 run. They're out. They're up by 10, Cheshire, and you're thinking, "Oh, this is looking pretty good." The interesting thing, talking about Gino, is he then came back on the court. He seemed to get riled by the officials on, can't remember if it was a call or a no call, and then he took it out on the Knicks. He's like, hit a 3, then he had an and-1, and he had 8 of a 9-0 run and got Leicester back to 32-35.
It's kind of a second season thing a little bit, because there is this, and I had this with Fletch as well, players have a different idea as to kind of, it's sort of born out of the NBA thing about superstar calls and about respect. And players take the view that, quite properly, but to a certain degree, that, hang on a minute, I've been here before, I've done this, I deserve some respect, not just from everybody else, but from the officials as well. Officials don't see it like that. Officials just see what's in front of them, and they call what they think is right. That may not be the way it is in the NBA, but or maybe up until this year, but that's the way it is in the BBL, and that can irk some of the guys who've been around a bit, improved themselves, and their response to that can be at times unhelpful, suboptimal, occasionally petulant, which then irks the referees even more, and you end up getting to this thing. So you've got to say to them, get them out of your head, whether you miss a call or make a call. And to be fair to Gino, what he did was he stepped into a couple of threes and made a couple of ridiculously tough threes, which actually is a part of his game that is something he doesn't look to do enough for me. And he did that to say, if you're going to call me a foul, I'm just going to drain a couple of threes and then talk some smack to you. But he was a little, I mean, I've had this conversation before as well. When your leader is a little bit antsy, that's the phrase, just not quite saying the game isn't quite going the way he wants it to. When you throw in the fact that it's a one-off cup game, when you throw in the fact that, Leicester haven't got a very good record in quarterfinals in cups. No, we've lost a lot of quarterfinals
in that building,
in that gym. And you throw all of that together, and obviously Gino is a guy who's aware of all of that, because he's aware, that's what he is. He's aware of everything that's going on. Then that can add to that that little bit of extra mental pressure, and how you handle it is important. So, but anyway, Rob brought him back, which was right. Was what Kima Buchetta didn't do with Chantal Handy. He brought him back at the beginning of the second quarter, because you're not going to take your best player out of the game for 17 minutes just to protect him for the second half. And and Cheshire's kind of benefit of playing the night before was that they're in rhythm. At least they've got some shots up. Leicester haven't played for a while, and Cheshire made some shots, but they got a little bit tired. Normally, what happens in those games is second half you kind of die.
Well, I must confess,
you die in the second half.
I was sat there at halftime thinking, gosh, Cheshire played really well, and they've gone into the locker rooms 44-44. That's
quite
probably
happy. I was on Leicester plus 12, and I was still quite happy. Thanks, guys.
And you think we all think the same thing. This is going to go away in the third quarter, because back to back, short rotation, giving it the best shot.
On that one, it did go away insofar as the stream did. I think we couldn't watch.
Yes. Yeah. So for those of you who saw two little plugs going like that, Ben Mockford hit 4 threes. Ben Mockford hit 4 threes in 3 minutes and 20 seconds, each more ridiculous than the last, as is his way, in a 14-1 run, and Cheshire a 47-58 ahead, I think, at which point the
It's a
stream
bit of a-
came back. So
it's
maybe
a
it
bit
was
of a
somebody who
sickener
didn't
for
like
Ben, isn't it?
Montford was pulling the plug out.
It's a bit of a sickener for Ben because he probably hasn't made a shot in about 3 weeks. And he comes out and he absolutely lights up the league champions in their own arena, which, as we know, we can do, and he made 8 in the game, and no one gets to see it. So sorry, I feel a bit sorry. But that's why you have Ben Montford, because, you know, in a game, you know, he can turn the basketball game for you, and he can make shots which are shots which basically nobody else in the league can make, you know, from anywhere. And Leicester probably, I didn't see the shots he made, but I'm pretty sure that, you know, after he'd made 2, then I don't think Rob would be happy giving up a 3rd and a 4th. I remember Tyler Bernardini doing that to us when I was sat with a swine flu or something at home watching it. Oh, not another one. Get in his face. You know, you can't do that. You've got to know the shooter is a shooter. Yeah, but then they went, what that did was that extends their energy.
Yeah.
You said in the game, you know, if they go back, they go down 4 or 5, then, you know, that's it. You know, I think I agree with you, that was it. But because they're up 11, they're constantly playing from front, that extends their energy. And Leicester were, you know, again, it was the guys who really don't know what's going on. I don't mean that in a bad way, but don't know the league, don't know the system. So McKenzie was ineffective in this game. You know, he's been great for them, but, you know, he just wasn't there in this game. He's like 1 of 8, 1 of 9. But it was Connor who had to step up for them to a certain degree. And
well, let's jump forward to that then. Gino Loving hit some threes to cut it to 3, but Cheshire is still 6 points ahead early in the 4th quarter. Washington then a 4-point play, Whelan a 3, Leicester a 9-0 run to go, 73-70 ahead.
It was breakdowns, and this was the problem with Cheshire, unfortunately. It's the kind of the karma thing, the basketball gods. If you haven't played defense for about 3 games, you know, and then they've given up 110 or 105 or whatever, then you can't just flick that switch. And when the game gets ready, when it matters, flick that defensive switch and say, yeah, we're going to shut you down, because you're in bad habits. So for Connor's 4-point play, I'm pretty sure he ran baseline. He ran for baseline screen.
He went round twice. It was like Gino sent him back round, and he just went a bit quicker the second time, and Wright couldn't keep up with him.
But did Wright went kind of over the screen and tried to intercept the pass, and then had to come down from the wing. But with Connor, it don't matter. You've got to stay on him. It doesn't matter if you're behind him, because by the time he turns and catches it, if you're right in front of him, you're gonna have to dribble the basketball. You can't let him shoot it. You just can't. You got to trail him on the screen. You cannot try and intercept. You cannot try and cheat, because as soon as you give him airspace, he's going to beat you. So it was a great play, but it was dumb defense. Then Whelan's 3 was an offensive rebound. He just missed one, and they couldn't clean up an offensive rebound, and he got the same shot from the same spot. Yeah, that can't happen. You know, you've got to run him off the second time, because he's been open once. Well, where's the guy who should have been guarding him the first time? You know, not to be able to get back out to him the second time. And the one thing about this game that I always thought Leicester would win, and I was very nearly wrong, but I always thought they'd win, was because I didn't think Cheshire could basically string together enough stops. Washington made another 3 where Dickerson was guarding him, and you know, Ben shouting at Dickerson, and you know, don't, you know, basically keep him off. You know, and he, you know, you want to make Connor drive past you and make a play. You don't want to let him step back and shoot it. You know, and at the end of the day, Ben went.
He did say he couldn't hear him. That was
his,
he said he couldn't hear him.
Right, okay. Ben went with he had to go with the defensive lineup to win the game, and that was a problem, because Dickerson killed them offensively. He was 7 of 8, 15 points. But he was minus 14 on the score, on the plus minus.
That was the start I was gonna come to. 15 points, 8 rebounds, 7 of 8 shooting, and there were only 2 players in a minus situation for Cheshire. He was minus 14, but Carly only played 5 minutes, was minus 3.
And I'm thinking, I mean, I didn't watch it, to be honest. I didn't watch it closely enough to see if, you know, while the game was going back and forward, to see, you know, where the defensive issues were with Cheshire. But if he's minus 14, that kind of, it's difficult to see that there's some things that aren't quite right there.
But he did some really good stuff out there as well, you know.
Offensively, he's great, but he scored 15 points and 7 yards, 15 points, 7 rebounds in 20 minutes, and they lost those minutes by 14. That tends to suggest that not many other guys scored in that time, and that they didn't get many stops in that time. You know, so because it means that Leicester scored at least 29 points in those minutes, and probably a lot more. And to the point whereby, you know, you were thinking at the end. Why wasn't he on the court? Because I hadn't checked the numbers at that point. I hadn't been watching it kind of close enough to figure it out, because, you know, after all, it was my birthday. And and he wasn't, and Ben had to go with his four smalls lineup, which was, Cal Carey, Teddy, Ben Mockford, Naaman Wright, and Mike Ocherobia, and keep Dickinson off the court. That actually hurt them as well. It hurt them offensively, because I was thinking 3 minutes ago, do you want to roll the dice with this guy and throw him back in there because you need a bucket, because they went pretty dry near the end. And the thing with beating Leicester and Leicester is you have to keep scoring.
Yeah,
you have to keep scoring, because if they get you into a grinded out kind of, they shut you down for 3 minutes, they're going to win. They always do. If you keep scoring, then maybe you can attack them. Maybe mentally they just drop off and they don't quite make the shots they're going to make. It's the spirit in picking the ball at your own basket.
Let's get to the last couple of minutes then.
Absolutely.
Crandall with an and one, 80-79.
Yeah.
He then goes 1 for 2 from the line with a minute and a half to go, 81-79. And then at the other end, Mockford hits the three, 1:10 to go. Adekoya was diving out at him. I watched it back again this morning just to see the last couple of plays, and I thought he actually did a reasonable job, except for the fact that Ben Mockford had hit 7 threes, and you basically can't let him.
To be honest, my camera was on zoom out at that point.
Okay.
That was, I don't know why. I think maybe my computer had gone bust, and I was having to watch it on Bet365 or something. My computer back at the wrong time, so I've been ignoring things I shouldn't be ignoring, like red lights. And so I only had the very wide angle shot from the back of morning side. So that minute I didn't really see in much detail. I saw the last playback. I watched the last playback since. I don't know. But if Ben Mockford should not be catching the basketball.
He was a fair way out there.
Yeah, I think that's right.
As Dave manically tries to hang up the phone.
I have no idea what is going on there. There you go. Ignore that. He doesn't know how important these things are.
Exactly. So then other end, Crandall doing everything, dancing with them, gets to the basket, the ball goes round and round and round and then drops in. So Leicester are back up by 1, and on the next play down, they were running, I think it was Teddy running around a screen, and Ocherobia, he's just slightly wider than a natural stance, and he just sort of moved that foot out a little bit. I watched it 2 or 3 times this morning. And I think Rowe on commentary said, you really just don't need to do that with 40 seconds to go.
That was a good, no, that was a block. It was a good call. And it's a difficulty with their defense, I think there was his 5th foul as well.
It was,
There's a difficulty with their defense the whole time. Ultimately, when you watch them against London, you watch them against Manchester, it was the stuff in the screen and roll they were giving up off one pass at the rim. Their interior defense, and that I thought was, that was the reason that I thought that they weren't going to win the basketball game from the beginning.
And then at the other end, Jackson does the right thing. They run the clock down. Jackson does the right thing, attacks the basket. Dickinson's not quite straight up. Again, I watched it back. His feet are probably outside the no charge circle, which I said they weren't at the time, but they probably just about were. But the arms were a bit out in front like that. So really helpful for those who are not watching video. So Jackson goes to the free throw line, but blows them both. And they get 18 seconds with a chance to win.
Good call, mind you, saying that he's not the best foul shooter. And your number right in front of you, 67%. Impressed. That's detailed pre-game stuff that people don't realize that they're in the presence of greatness when
I wouldn't go that far.
But no, that was key. I mean, the number was there. I mean, I'm sure it's a chance. So that gave them the chance, and then Wright went.
I thought he went too quick. Rowe said, you see a gap in the defense, you go for it down 1. What did you think?
If your score's tied, you went too quick. If you're down by 1, you just attack. You take what you can get. You get the best shot you can. You might, if you can't, kind of, because you might miss. You might get an offensive rebound. You just don't know. And sometimes if you get there before the defense is kind of set up, it's even better. And he did. I didn't see the call because I was watching on the wide angle again. So
same call. Adekoya is exactly the same thing as Dixon. Adekoya was there, but the arms were just a bit.
There's an interesting thing about this was that Cheshire basically played more Walker off the court in this game.
Yeah, they did. They really attacked him in the pick and roll.
I've not really seen that happen before. And Rob's obviously confident with Adekoya as a backup centre because he's played a bit there now, and he had to go with the quicker line with Adekoya there instead of Walker. But yeah, Wright knocks them down, and then 9 seconds, and it's Gino time.
Yeah, and there was I mean, there was no doubt what was going to happen. He was going to attack and make a decision. And interestingly, Rowe pointed it out in real time, and when I watched it back, I saw what he was talking about even better. Was Adekoya drifted almost off the court. He was so deep behind the basket, and I think it was Dickerson, his defender. Obviously, everybody's drawn to Gino. Gino's going to do something crazy, so he came forward, which allowed then Gino just a nice simple bounce pass. It's a great pass, but nice simple one. Adekoya with the layup.
Yeah, I mean it's the dunker spot. It's a dunker spot. It's called in the NBA. You know, basically the spot where you stand basically off the court to create as much space as you can, basically off the court on kind of where the key kind of goes down just to the side of the basket. The idea being you're creating as much space as you can. The problem I have with Cheshire is that, you know, the one situation you want to avoid in that situation is Crandall getting to his right hand down the middle of the court, or just to the right hand side of the middle of the court. With every option available. And Leicester are perfectly spaced. They've got Jackson in one corner, Connor in the other corner, Loving on the wing, and they've got Adekoya on there. So Crandall's got all those 4 options. So it's pick your poison. And what you have to,
he's also got the option of going himself as well.
And he has the option of going himself. Yeah, exactly. If you don't guard him. So what do you have to do? Well, there's 2 things. You either deny him the basketball and you use the person who's guarding the inbounder. Because we know where he's coming. He's starting off in the bottom of the baseline. He's coming up off a screen to catch the basketball. So the first thing you can do is you can deny him the basketball. Manchester tried it last year, and I think Leicester on a nice little counter to a high post player and a little bounce pass, but Manchester blew it. They got it right. They had the right idea. They had a bad execution. Cheshire basically let him catch the basketball. And I thought that was too easy. That was a mistake. I would much prefer your big man, your guy who's guarding the inbounds comes off the inbounds as soon as the ball's put in bound, or put in the player's hand, and looks for Crandall. Where's Crandall? He's coming here, right? And hopefully you might be able to stuff them up to the point where they get a 5-second violation, have to throw it somewhere else, and Gino hasn't got the basketball, because that spread pick and roll thing is just, it's the hardest thing in the world to guard in the BBL. Period. The second thing is that if he catches a basketball, if you're Teddy, you've got to keep him left. You've got to keep him on the side where you can't let him spin out to the far side of the court. Because that's his strong hand.
I think it was in part because he kind of lost the ball. I don't know if Teddy had touched it or he just misdribbled it.
But actually, to be fair to Teddy, he tried to do it. And he actually, because I watched it, I saw it back from the baseline camera, and he actually tried, his first dribble was left, and Teddy was sending him left. But what Gino did was he pulled a spin dribble out, and Teddy wasn't kind of high enough. He wasn't high enough, forcing him left, so he allowed him to get back to his right, which is worse because now he's got his shoulder into you and you're riding him, so nothing good can happen. So, you know, he had to keep him going back to where the ball came from, and he didn't. And at that point, you know, they were done because Crandall's too good in that situation. That, you know, that is his perfect optimal situation. He's not a great pocket passer, so, you know, what Cheshire did during the game was on the screen rolls on the wings, they were icing them, which is basically making him throw it back to the big guy and guarding with 2 guys on the wings. But in the middle screen and roll, and I remember thinking halfway through the third quarter, why isn't he doing a bit more middle screen and roll? You have to either go under it and make him shoot the 3, which he was making in that game, or you have to get him to his left at the very least. And he can still beat you, but it's harder. And they didn't do either of that, and so there was a definitive play. But yeah, that's the thing. If you haven't been playing defense for 2 months, you can't rely on it when it matters.
So there's still 2.9 seconds to go. Cheshire with the timeout. Obviously, they advanced the ball to the front court. They tried to inbound it. They got a bit late in the inbound situation, so it was a bit of a forced pass, and Crandall was able to bat it away. So they got it again from the side.
They actually got lucky the first time, and if Crandall probably had it the time again, he wouldn't have touched it. You want him catching the ball there, because the second time they got a far better look. Yeah.
So 2.1 seconds, and then again I watched this one back, and part of the reason I watched this one back is because in real time Gino ends up on the floor.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
and he looked over there. Obviously, looked the shot go up, saw it came out, and he turned to the bench and he went, "My fault. That's my fault." So I wanted to see what he'd done, and actually, he went the wrong way around the screen.
yeah.
It was Dixon set the screen. He'd come the long way round.
Didn't
Wright
you-
had come the other way,
Yeah.
and actually got, for him, a pretty good. Adekoya does come running at him, but
even so,
you'd
that's his
take
shot.
that shot for the win, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and again, it's the same thing I was just saying before. You've got the last second situations. You've got to stay on the body of the shooter. He can't cut the gaps. You can't try and do it. I saw him end up on the floor, and part of the devilish part of me did think that would be a hell of a time to call a flop technical. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
No time on the clock, technical for flopping. But no, I'm glad they didn't. But I didn't see how it happened, so I didn't watch it back.
He basically lost his footing as he was going around the screen.
Cool. Well, worse have been, less than that's been called a flop.
Yeah.
But no, Leicester got away with one. But it's probably better for all of us that they get to play London twice and Cheshire don't, to be honest.
So
Better for my sanity.
Crandall, 24.7 assists, 3 or 4 from 3-point line. Jackson, 17.6 of 9, and Washington 12, 3 of 8 from 3-point line. The amazing stat of the game was Ben Mockford. And I'm not the only one who noticed this, because several people went, "Has that ever happened before?" 30 points, no rebounds, no assists, no steals, no blocks, and a 0 on the plus minus. It was incredible.
It's just a bit bonkers, 30 points, and literally your impact on the game is that. But Cheshire needed those 30 points.
Yeah, they did. But so I did look it up because of that. And actually, there are only 3 players who have scored double figures with no steals, no rebounds, no assists, and no blocks. And all 3 of them have happened this year. Teo did it. Jules Dangakodo did it in May. Teo did it in October, and obviously Mockford.
Teo, Teo, no rebounds. Teo,
Well, Teo. Now he only played 20 minutes. The other 2 played 30-something minutes. So that was the name on right. 16 and 10. Teddy Okarafor, 10 points, 10 steals, 0 turnovers.
10 steals.
I've got 10. It must be 10 assists. I don't know why I put 10 steals. I put 10 steals in. It's 10
steals on the brain. You get one stat right, and suddenly everybody's getting.
I know. 0 turnovers though.
Oh, yeah. He's solid, but he's effective because Ben Mockford's draining everything. Ben Mockford's not making those shots. They need another guy.
So let's move on to today's game. Manchester Giants 95, Surrey Scorchers 92. Gilchrist has now left the Scorchers. Lawrence, we saw him go down. I haven't heard any update, but I'm assuming it's quite a significant injury, so we don't know what that is. Doesn't leaves them quite thin. Not a great deal in this game actually through the first
it was addition by subtraction for Surrey again. Same thing, less players, but everybody kind of locked into play because they know they're going to play. They caught a tough break when Davis went down as well. That was probably the one break that they couldn't handle in the game. And as ever, they were playing from behind. Even though they weren't behind by as much, they were generally always behind in this game.
Well, the Giants had the last score of the first quarter and the first 10 of the second quarter to go 7 points up, and from then on, Surrey were always chasing it.
Always behind.
I must confess, I didn't see what happened to Davis because that was right at the point that the GB women's game was finishing. And I had an issue with my phone. I was switching over, so I didn't quite see it. But he obviously,
I didn't watch much of the first half of this because I had the Glasgow game, I had the Manchester game, and the GB second half, GB women's game. And what I did was I watched the Glasgow game on my phone, the GB women's game on YouTube, and listened to Jason Swain on the other thing on my computer, and tried to get an idea what was going on with them. But also it was kind of very much kind of up and down, and everybody scoring type the game, and it wasn't really going to get into it until the fourth quarter. And Manchester would just, they pulled it out to 10. Sorry, we're just a little bit. It's tough because I'm saying addition by subtraction, but I'm also going to say that they were undermanned. So how does that work?
Yeah, exactly.
It is both. It helped them, but they didn't have enough defense.
To be
And it's
honest
always
with
a
you,
defense.
yeah, I thought again, doing the same thing you're doing. I thought they made a good fist of it, and particularly when Davis went out injured. But that at the start of the fourth quarter, all of that seemed to catch up with them, and they just looked a little bit short. And then you've got Will Saunders knocking down shots. Giants got out to 10, and you're starting to think, well, they're going to win this by 15 or 20. And they were still 10 up with 2 minutes to go. And you can't see that. You can't see how Giants could lose the game, but they sort of messed up that last 2 minutes.
They did, but not to the point whereby they ever felt there was that much jeopardy to them. Because the other thing is, I mean, Surrey are athletic, so when they play any team that's athletic and has scorers and is playing without fear, because they've got nothing to lose, is going to take shots quicker, which means they come back quicker. Maybe gamble for steals a bit more, which means they get in the pass lane and get uncontested layups. Maybe make a three here or there. But the problem with Surrey is every time they get to 5 or 6, then the defense lets them down. So they don't go on, Surrey don't go on runs of like 15-2, 20 to, 20-4 runs, because their defense doesn't hold up enough. It's been their problem for multiple years. And again, they've given up 95 points on the road. And, they did. It's right that they made a couple of shots down the end to make a 3-point game, which killed me on the spread, by the way. But they're not empty points, but you're in the cup, so you lose by 3, you lose by 33. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I mean, they're not. They're competitive. They're not going to be an easy out for anybody to beat anybody. But you don't get the impression that maybe the one guy with their swagger is Davis, but he hasn't shown that he can convert that swagger into wins. So you don't know where the wins are coming from.
Yeah.
They got the win at Bristol.
They're that weird mix of a difficult team to beat who lose a lot of games.
Yeah. It's not a nightmare to play against, because they got got a 7-footer in the middle. They got Jameson, who's built like a bill, a bit like a bullet. The wings are Teo and McLemore are 6'5" and chiseled, and Kaelin's going to shoot it from 35 feet when you forget about him. And Davis is even 6'5" and chiseled. And Hamrick's another one who wouldn't look out of wouldn't look out of place in the Mr. Universe magazine. So that means they're a physical, tough team to play. But there needs to be some attention to detail on the defense. Bottom line. And in the one game they won, Gilchrist made a couple of plays at the rim defensively, which helped them. But you can't give up 95 and win on the road in this league. I mean, if you go through your records, I'd be interested to know how many times in the last 2 years a team has given up 95 points on the road and won. And it wouldn't be that many.
I'll check afterwards.
Let's
move on to the last game, and it is in Glasgow, where the Rocks are through. They won 95-90, so they will play Manchester as a result of that. The game went into overtime, and in this ball game, but Bristol were in front for much of it.
Well, Bristol, dominated this game, but not on the scoreboard. That's right. For about 38 minutes, they dominated this game. I don't know what. I haven't seen the stats, but I don't know what the rebounding numbers were. But the impression I got from watching it was that they killed them on the glass. They killed them in the hustle plays, and they played the 3 guards a lot, which I was talking about last week. The Miller, Evans, and Jacob played them together a lot.
Yeah.
And I thought they really controlled the game. Miller really played really, really well in this game, certainly up until the fourth quarter. And they got whatever they wanted when they wanted. And if it wasn't, to be honest, for Ali Fraser, basically carrying Glasgow through 3 quarters, and then kind of Gareth Murray doing it the rest of the way, Glasgow would have been out considerably longer before they were. What was the rebounding? Have you got there?
50-56. I just had a quick look on the
I'm
thing.
surprised. How many offensive rebounds did Bristol have?
I to be honest with you, my system's gone a bit wobbly, so I've just closed it because.
Well, in any event, I thought they out hustled
resources. Yeah,
I thought the bits that I caught, they out hustled them. I thought they had a great scheme on Johnson. They really crowded the lane on him, and I thought they got what they wanted at the offensive end, and they knocked down shots. I was really, really impressed with Bristol, but they're a team full of BBL rookies, or American BBL rookies. And again, they're coming up against a team who, I mean, it's interesting the way Gareth coached his team, because he wasn't happy with his BBL rookies either, because Harris didn't play much in the first and second quarter. Hillsman was sat down towards the end. The new guy, Green, he isn't many, certainly, at this point, he looks, he's a shooter, but I'm not sure he's given them much else. And he wasn't knocking down shots today.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you saw it, but they were raffling Minnie's shirt off on Twitter. I thought of you on that. I should have sent.
Well, I will say this. I mean, the lack of a commentator up there is not good.
Yes. Can I second that, actually, particularly at the end? Because when Johnson fouls out with 30 seconds to go, I did not clock that, because nobody's saying that's his fifth foul when you're watching two games.
There's two things about it. One, you've got a good commentator up there. Mark's been doing it for years up there and is perfectly capable of communicating the game. Two, you're not losing out on bums on seats because they're not full anyway. So having a proper thing on the commentary wouldn't harm you. Three, everybody else in the league has a commentator. It's not, it's cheap, to be honest, not to do it. And four, I'm afraid the guy in the arena is not a commentator. He just says, on the defense, let's go Rocks. I mean, no, Rocks ball. Now, that's, whether that might be what he's been told to do, I don't know. But it's not good, because, part of creating fans in the sport is educating people. Now, there is no education going on in Glasgow in relation to which players are who's playing for the opposition, how many fouls people have, what the situation is in the game, why a referee has made a specific call, or even what that call was. None of that. No. And it's not, and it's not good enough.
And it's super jarring when you, like you and I, you sat there watching Manchester in one screen and Glasgow in the other, when you've got Jason breaking it down really well. And they could have Kieran there. Kieran sat at the game.
They could have Kieran. You got John Bunyan, who's done it brilliantly up there. Mark Woods has done it. It's just really, really disappointing. And I hope the league turns around and says, no, this isn't good enough. But anyway, that said,
so let's just spin forward to the beginning. Basically, the story of this game is Flyers would get out 6 or 7, Rocks would cut it a little bit, and then Flyers would get out to 7 or 8, and then Rocks would cut it a little bit. And then last couple of minutes, a couple of really poor turnovers in the backcourt by the Flyers. And
what happened was Glasgow started playing with a degree, a little bit desperation, because it was a cup game, and they understood that. And they got a couple of probably friendly calls. I'm not saying they're wrong calls, but friendly calls, a travel in the backcourt, and then a kind of a bit of a rugby scrum and stuff like that going on.
Can I just do another little rant there, because there were 2 wrap-ups in the last minute of that game, where the possession went Glasgow's way and then it went back to Bristol's way. FIBA, look at EuroLeague, right? I know there's a whole politics and all of that. They brought the jump ball back. It's great in that situation. That's what you want. 2 blokes jump it up. Decide the possession by who's got more athletic ability and skill to tip it the right way, rather than what the little arrow on the table says.
Is that a hobby horse I can see just riding past?
It is, yeah.
It is, yeah. Good for you. I don't disagree, but as a referee, they're the nightmares to administer it. But that's probably not a good reason not to have them. I don't disagree with that. But Bristol weathered it. And I think Johnson must have fouled out on that offensive foul call.
It did, yeah. It was like it was called for a hook round the thing, which is an unusual call in that position. 30 seconds to go. It's his 5th foul, and it was a 2-point game. And
then it all went haywire, because what happened then was Glasgow decided to foul, which surprised me. 31 seconds to go in a 2-point game.
Yeah.
Because at that point, if you're Bristol, that's exactly what you want. You're in a foul shot game.
Yeah.
You make, in theory, you shouldn't. If you foul shot and make your foul shots, defend properly, you should not lose once the opposition are deliberately fouling.
Yeah. So they made the free throws.
And they made the free throws. So you're up 4 with 30 seconds to go. And at this point, you can't lose that game. You can lose it, but you shouldn't lose it. And as a professional team, you shouldn't lose that game. And what happened was, particularly as Johnson's fouled out as well. Yeah. And what happened was, again, it's baby knowledge. It's baby. Yeah. Bristol didn't know where the threat was.
Yeah.
And the threat was a player.
And a big beard. It was obvious. Big beard
who's been doing this for 16 years, who hasn't actually won anything in that time, but has demonstrated, time and time again, a heart and a commitment to making these guys good. Yeah. And what? No way. You see, if you're up 4, the biggest thing is you can't give up a 3 at any point.
Yeah.
Because that then becomes a 1-possession game again, even on the foul. You can't. The reality is, they're going to foul you. So you assume that you can get the ball in bounds and you get fouled and you got 2 more foul shots. That means you only get 1 possession. That's 2 points. The only way they can beat you is if they get 6 points out of 2 possessions, or they only tie. They get 6 points out of 2 possessions. So who are the 2 guys that there's no way in the world you're going to let to shoot threes? When you'd happily give up a 2. And Gareth stepped up and basically said, "We're not losing," and made a tough 3. At which point I thought, "Oh, there's something going on here." Got the ball in bounds, fouled them, makes another 2 foul shots. And then
Rogers made the second 2. Jacob made the first 2. Rogers made the second 2.
And then how you I think it was Evans who turned his head and let Bunyan slip to the corner when you're up 3 for it's wide open, a corner 3, which Johnny Bunyan's been making for about 10 years. And that's still telling you now that they're a better team when Johnny Bunyan's on the court. Whatever the makeup of the team, they're a better team when he's on the court. To give him that shot, is mind-boggling, really. And it's not the coach's fault. It's nothing. It's unfortunately, it's a young American player who doesn't know where the threats are, hasn't quite processed everything that's going on in the game at that time. It's all a maelstrom. And they let Johnny Bunyan slip to the corner, and Evans turns his head. Bang, 3-point shot. It was always going in, tie game, and at that point momentum is there. And Gareth Murray wants to get the stop, and I think Evans took a tough kind of step back 3-point jump shot.
I didn't think it was. I didn't think under the circumstances it was that.
No, it was the same shot he made against.
Well, yeah, that was the one that came to mind. Whoever it was.
Surrey, I think. Surrey in Surrey down there. Yeah, it wasn't a bad shot, but he didn't make it. And at that point, you see, he's just made the mistake to give Bunyan the open 3, so he's now taking it on his shoulders. So his equilibrium isn't quite right. He's not got the swagger that he would otherwise have, because he knows he shouldn't have let Bunyan shoot the 3, and he misses that. And then Gareth becomes William Wallace.
Yeah, it was vintage Gareth Murray, wasn't it, in overtime?
Well, to be honest, it was further than that. I mean, for those who didn't watch it, watch the last 5 minutes of overtime, because Gareth Murray basically took over the basketball game.
Yeah.
He took it over with his mindset, and he doesn't play. He's still probably not playing enough, because he's giving everybody else a chance first before he puts himself in the game. But I watching this, but I watched it at the time, and I just, it was like flashbacks. I mean, I saw Fab Floney in relation to his mindset. Suddenly he's making layups, he's talking to the opposition, he's getting in their faces, he's telling them what's going on, he's up in the crowd. And it just struck me, it's different gravy when you're a player coach. It's not just about, you making a few plays and your team winning. The whole organization is on you. That can be a plus as well as a minus. That can inspire you to better. That was what Flanoy channeled for so many years, being better actually on the court and when he was off the court, because he's channeling that, the fact that this is, all that matters to him is winning that basketball game, and lifting his team to the point of doing that. And it's the greatest compliment I can give to Gareth Murray in that game. Well, that's exactly what he was.
Well, the interesting thing is you said he went all William Wallace there, and it was the 3 Scots guys whose numbers were huge and got them through to the.
Well, halfway through the second quarter, you could see he wasn't very happy about what was going on, because he basically had a Scottish lineup on. You had Johnson, Bunyan, Malcolm, himself, and Ali Fraser. That's basically 4 Scots and Jordan Johnson. I mean, that's and that's him.
Johnson was 3 of 12 shooting.
Yeah, he struggled in this game. I don't know if he's hitting a bit of a kind of a wall a little bit, or maybe Bristol have some big guards, athletic guards, and they prepared well for him.
I'll tell you the other stat I've got here, which probably answers your question about why you felt like they were getting killed on the glass. 58 to 26 points in the paint.
That'd be why. Yeah. No. Oh yeah, that's dominant. I mean, that is scary. And how Bristol have to win the game. I'm afraid, they did everything right. I thought that the game plan was good. The scouting was good. They won the game, but they lost on the scoreboard. And that comes down to your last 35 seconds and making sure you guys are aware of what's going on. The amount. It's not about what you do; it's about who is doing it. anybody can shoot. Gareth Murray cannot catch the basketball. Gareth Murray's a forward. You're down 4, 30 seconds to go. He can't have an inch of space.
No.
You just can't have it, you know. And they didn't know him well enough to respect that, you know. And then the Johnny Bunyan thing was another, you know, just mistake. And they didn't know Johnny Bunyan enough well to respect that. And once you got into overtime, then Bristol's head, I'm afraid Bristol were never going to win the game.
Yeah. So Glasgow and Manchester will play each other, and Leicester and London will play each other.
Manchester have played like 14 games this year, and they've only played 5 different teams.
Yeah.
It's you know, I mean, I'm afraid there's something got to be done. You know, you can't be having teams play each other twice in the cup, and then Manchester and Sheffield play each other twice the first 2 weeks of the league season.
Yeah.
That is solvable. I know fixtures are very difficult, and I know, you know, I know that it's difficult fitting venues, availability, and all of that stuff. But that's not difficult. You can swap a different team in and play that later in the season. Now you've got Manchester playing Glasgow again for it, so they'll play Glasgow, like they played Glasgow in the league already. So they'll play Glasgow 5 times before they played some teams at all. You know, that's the tiny little easy wins that we got to do better at. And it's tough. I get it's tough, but it's also solvable. Just like the commentator stuff, it's solvable. And so I kind of have sympathy for Lloyd Gardner and people like that. I mean, you can't play 14 games against just 4 different teams or something. So he's the first South team we played all year. Just nonsense. Sorry. Anyway, that's a rant.
No.
It's a tired rant because it's getting on a bit, isn't it?
It is getting on a bit. Yeah. We should probably bring it to an end here.
I think so. Yeah, I think this is
as good a point as any to say we'll be back next Sunday night to do it all over again. Have a great week, but for now, goodbye.
Thanks, guys.